Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg. I am here today to do my Friday Reads video where I wrap up the week in reading and any bookish things that happened during the week or just anything interesting that happened during the week. I am here with Guinness and Jameson. You can kind of see her ears while she takes a nap down there. And I wanted to mention real quick, yesterday was Spirit Day. So I'm filming this on Friday. Thursday was Spirit Day. And I hadn't realized that, so I didn't get a chance to wear purple. But in reality, I work from home and I didn't film a video, so nobody would have seen it anyway. So I made sure I wore purple today in honor of Spirit Day. If you don't know what Spirit Day is, it was created in 2010 as a sort of anti-bullying measure to show your support for LGBTQ people and to show you that you stand with them. So I wanted to make sure I wore purple today, and I'm wearing it with my green hoodie because just as a funny in-joke to Joel that I will let all of you in, because huckleberry and pistachio are what we joke were our wedding colors. So it's just a funny little thing to pair it with green. Also wanted to say thank you to everybody who left comments on my last Friday Reads video, which I will link down below, because everybody left really nice comments. I had missed a Friday Reads video the week before that, and when I did my video last week, I caught everybody up and mentioned that my grandmother had died, first of all, but I had missed the video because we had to go to Seattle a day early unexpectedly because we have a specialist appointment for Guinness, who is actually asleep right here. And thank you for all of the support and the kind words. Hopefully we will know more in December when we go back for a recheck. In the meantime, he will be celebrating his 8th birthday on November 2nd. So we're getting ready for that and planning what we're going to feed him and how we're going to celebrate. And in terms of my grandmother, thank you. It really, she took a downturn very quickly. She fell and broke her ribs earlier in the week that she died, and then that turned into pneumonia, and the pneumonia got her so fast that there was really no chance that I would have been able to get back and visit one last time anyway. I'm really hesitant on travel right now anyway, even though I am vaccinated, I have my booster from Pfizer, but I am hesitant to travel on a plane. It wouldn't have worked anyway, but thank you for all of the really nice comments. What I'll say about my grandmother, because I didn't really say anything about her in my last Friday Reads video, was that she was born in Italy and immigrated to the United States when she was about 3 or 4 years old. And she was a really kind of indomitable woman. She had this sort of sassy life force. And that's one thing I always appreciated for her. She was a very feisty lady. And she snuck out to see a Frank Sinatra concert when she was a teenager, which is one of my favorite stories of hers. But she grew up in a very conservative Italian family. She had to marry an Italian, so they actually went back to her hometown. She was actually born in Giovinazzo, but most of her family lived in Bari, and Bari is where my grandfather is from as well. So she had to go back and marry an Italian. And then when her oldest daughter, who is my mother, was coming of age, they wanted her to marry an Italian as well. And it was like a scandal in the whole family that my mother refused to have an arranged marriage, because that's basically what my grandmother had. Although it worked, they loved each other very much and were married for 72 years. But my mother not only refused an arranged marriage, but didn't marry an Italian. So that was a huge scandal. And then none of my mother's younger siblings ended up marrying Italians. And ultimately, my grandmother was very accepting of her gay grandson, me. There was a lot of consternation about how she would react when she met Joel for the first time, which was on Christmas Eve, and how we should introduce him, we should introduce him as a friend. And it was decided that we should just be honest. So when Joel and I came in, Nanny was washing fennel in the sink, and I walked up and just said, "Hi, Nanny, this is my boyfriend Joel." And she just said, "Okay," and looked at Joel and offered him fennel. And that's how it went. Unfortunately, she did live long enough that the Trump era turned back a lot of that progress. But she was a great lady. And again, thank you for all of the kind comments. And I wanted to use that as an opportunity to talk about the mail and how much the mail matters, because I got a package in the mail yesterday from my aunt that had the funeral card from the funeral. I'll show it to you. And a photo of my grandmother. There's the funeral card, and here is the photo of my grandmother. I wish I had a photo of her young because she was a dish when she was young, but that's my grandmother. And she included a copy of the eulogy, a copy of the invitation to the funeral, and she included a card that I had sent my grandmother last year when she broke her hip. And it's a cheap card. I got it at the grocery store because with the hours that I work and the fact that I work from home, the grocery store was really the only place I could get to after hours that sold cards. But when my aunt was cleaning out my grandmother's stuff, she found it displayed and wanted to make sure I had it. So hopefully the fact that I mailed my grandmother this card meant something to her, and that's why it was on display, but it certainly meant something to me to have it sent back, even though it was a cheap card. Hopefully the sentiment inside was better. And it means something to me to have all of these things that I can keep since I couldn't be there. So the mail matters, support the post office, fire Lois to joy, all that stuff. And then the last thing before we get into the 3K Q&A question and then my Friday reads is that I have a couple of things planned for longer form videos, but it's been really slow going because work has just been really busy lately and I don't have a lot of time for other things during the day. And I can't really complain about that because the fact that we are busier than we have ever been is probably unusual for right now. And I should be grateful for that. So, but it's been slow going. So I'm working on my Gone with the Wind post. I think I'm about halfway through what I have written out and what I am going to be used as a basis for my Pulitzer Prize video for Gone with the Wind. And I am also working on something that actually also came from the 3K Q&A series that I did last year. Somebody had asked me if I had any advice for people who were thinking about BookTube channels, and I thought I might have enough to do a video. Well, I'm finally thinking about getting around to doing that video. But I thought it would be interesting to open it up for questions. Like if you have been thinking about a channel and there are things that you are a little bit worried about or logistic wise or content wise or like how to do it, let me know in the comment section down below. Now, I will give you a couple of little warnings that I'm going to include in that video as well. If you are thinking about a BookTube channel because you want to get in touch with publishers and authors, I'm not your guy because I haven't done that at all. So I can't really tell you how to do that or how to make those introductions and foster that relationship. And if you have technical questions about cameras, microphones, anything like that, I'm also not your guy because I film on my iPhone. I don't have a microphone and that's just what I do. Until recently, I didn't even have a tripod, and I only got a tripod because Joel told me maybe 2 months ago, not even, maybe 1 month ago, that there were really cheap ones that have ring lights attached to them that you could buy. So I got one for $40. And here I am toward the end of, I think this is my third full year on BookTube, and I only just got a tripod. So if you have technical questions about like equipment, not your guy. But if you have questions about content, how to frame your channel, anything like that, or just if there are things that have been holding you back as you create your own channel that you think maybe I could help with, put it in the comment section down below. And if it's something that I think I can help with, I will try to incorporate it into the actual video that I do. So let's get to the 3K Q&A question, which comes from Susan Lee this week. She has a couple of different questions, but all of them are quick. The first one is, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? So let's talk fantasy, because the place I would want to live isn't really a practical place to live. My favorite place in the world is Lake Moraine in Canada. It's where I got married. It's sort of a tourist spot. So there's an overlook where there are usually a lot of tourists while it's open. There's a little hotel. So in this fantasy world, I would have a cabin on the lake. And in this fantasy world, it would be much more easy to access because it is only open from about maybe late May or early June, whenever the snow thaws, until October. After that, it's snowed in. It's The Shining. You can't get there. So in this fantasy land, it's much easier to access. It's not completely snowed in. I don't want to be the Torrance family. And it wouldn't be as much of a tourist destination as well, because there would be peace and quiet if I lived there. So if I could live anywhere and have it be my fantasy location, that's what I would say. The next question is, what is your favorite scent? I'm going to go with Christmas trees because I just love that. One of my favorite books as a child was The Sweet Smell of Christmas. I think it's The Sweet Smell of Christmas. It's a scratch and sniff book, and that was one of my favorite things. And there's a page where you can smell a Christmas tree, and that was always my favorite. And I love Christmas trees. They make me really excited and really happy, so I'm going to go with that. Favorite movie. So if I'm thinking as a critic, although I haven't seen it in about at least 15 years, it's Amadeus. That's been my answer. I should admit, the movies that I watch the most frequently, it's traditionally been Moonstruck. but lately The Devil Wears Prada has been sort of overtaking it. So if you define favorite by what I watched the most, it's either Moonstruck or The Devil Wears Prada. But the movie that I've traditionally said is my favorite is Amadeus. That's a really great movie. And it happens to be based on a play. And I haven't seen it in about 15 years, but F. Murray Abraham's performance in that movie is towering. I also really love Cabaret, All About Eve. I could go on, but let's just leave it at those three. And favorite translated fiction. I actually did not come up with an answer to this. I think I'm going to go with Blindness by Jose Saramago, because that is one of my favorite books and it is translated, and that's what I can think of quickly. So thank you for the question, and let's get into the actual Friday Reads portion of this video. And I did not get a whole lot done in terms of reading. I did a great job working on Taste, My Life Through Food by Stanley Tucci over the weekend. I picked it up and was almost immediately 76 pages into it. However, then the work week started and I didn't get any more reading in it done. So 76 pages is where I left off on Sunday, and that's where I am at now. Hopefully over the weekend I can pick it back up and make a little bit more progress, but I just don't have any time to read during the workday. And in the evenings, because work has been so busy, I've just been so tired that I haven't really been able to focus. So this is the first time I've even really picked this book up since Sunday, and I'm hoping I will get back into it. It feels really cozy for me to read this because Stanley Tucci is a very charming person, and I could listen to him tell a story all day, every day. He has a really great show about food on CNN called Searching for Italy, which is fantastic. If you have not watched that, I'd recommend that as well. But the other thing I really enjoy about this is that because I grew up very close to my mother's family, and my mother's family is all Italian, and they are from, Bari and Giovinazzo are not exactly from the region where Stanley Tucci's family is from, but there are enough similarities because it's heading towards southern Italy that it's amusing. Like, he talks about how butter was not used. And my mother's, obviously my sisters and I are totally American, but my mother's big complaint about food that is not Italian is that it's so buttery that it's disgusting. And he talks a little bit about how his family never used butter. So it's really funny to read this, and just the dynamics between his family where they talk about how they argue over giving each other gifts reminds me a lot of my mother's family. So, and maybe with the fact that it's timed with the passing of my grandmother, it feels like comforting in a way to be reading this at this time. So I'm really looking forward to picking this back up and making a little bit more progress. I've been enjoying the first 76 pages. It flies by. And part of why it flies by is that there are recipes in here. So you can see just on page 75 is the beginning of a recipe, and then page 76 is where that recipe ends. So, he does also have cookbooks. We own at least one of them. Also, the movie Big Night is really fantastic. So I've just been a fan of Stanley Tucci for a while. And I'm looking forward to picking this back up and getting further into it. I had started the audio of The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrun last week because I was looking for something light and easy that I could get through after I DNF'd Damnation Spring. And I was enjoying Charm Offensive, but I think it was on Monday, Joel and I realized that the audio of Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World by Benjamin Alire Saenze is available on Scribd. So we both started listening to this. Joel had to travel for work this week, so he managed to finish it already, and he loved it. And I'm so desperate to catch up and be done with this. I am only, I think, 20% of the way into the audio because, again, I just have not had a lot of time during the day when I've been working. And during the evening, I've been so tired that I would frequently find I would get about a chapter in and I'd have to go back because I hadn't been paying attention. And that's not the way I want to experience this book. So I made some progress last night. I've made some progress today, and I'm hoping over the weekend I'll make some more progress because I am also really loving this book. I'm only, like I said, 20% through. I almost looked for a bookmark, but I don't have one because I got a physical copy of this from Montana Book Company. I didn't think the audio was going to be available. And it is. And it's read by Lin-Manuel Miranda, by the way. And he does a really great job. Hire Broadway people to do all audiobooks because he does a really great job with the emotion and the tone and the pace and all of the different voices of the characters. He is fantastic as an audiobook narrator. You can probably imagine that, but he really is. So anyway, just in that first section of the book. This is set in the late 80s, and I had really wanted to reread the first book before I started this, and I didn't. So in the beginning, I was a little bit confused about which character is which, because one of them is really talkative and intelligent, and the other one is very reticent and quiet and a little internally strong, but kind of questions himself on the inside. And I couldn't remember which one was which. So I've had a little bit of a struggle to reorienting myself to the story, but I'm fully back in at this point, I think. And the book does a really great job kind of recapping things that happened that are important, but just in the beginning of the book. So spoiler for the first book, which isn't really a spoiler anymore, because it's the premise of this book. At the end of the first book, Aristotle and Dante become a couple, and one of them had a really big struggle admitting that he was gay and admitting he had feelings for the other. So in this book, they are seniors in high school. They are getting used to their new identities as out gay people, and at a time when that really was a difficult thing to be, especially as a high schooler, and when it really wasn't accepted and the AIDS crisis was still ongoing. And just in the first 20% of this audiobook, it has had so much to say about being young and in love and in a relationship, but also about figuring out who you are and about acceptance in a time when being gay was a really big struggle. I mean, it still is a really big struggle, but back then it was really difficult. And the parents are very accepting of their children in this book. God, the parents, they're such great people. But they are afraid for their children because they're worried about how much their lives are going to be a struggle because of their identity as gay people. And it's just hitting all the feels for me. And I really can't wait to finish this book. I highly recommend it if you have not already. I would do the first book first, obviously, but this is so far a really fantastic book. Could be a contender for my favorite read of the year. So far, nothing has supplanted The Yield by Tara June Lynch, but if the remaining 80% of this audiobook goes the way the first 20% has, I just love it. I just really love it. So, and Joel really loved it as well, and he really wants me to finish so we can talk about it. So hopefully by next week I will be done when I do my Friday reads, and I can check in with you about this book. Before I picked up Taste, actually, I want to mention I had picked up The Power of the Dog because I said I wanted easy books. That's why I picked up The Charm Offensive. And then I picked up The Power of the Dog because I wanted to read it before the movie came out and I was really interested. I got 12 pages in before I pivoted to the Stanley Tucci book. So two things had happened. First, I had forgotten that I promised Joel that the Stanley Tucci would be my next book because he already read it and wants to talk to me about it. But also, I just really wanted something that would be a little bit easier to get through. So the first 12 pages of this are fantastically written. I can't wait to get further into this book. The complicating factor is now I've gotten 2 notifications from my library. So last week I mentioned that the love songs of W.E.B. Du Bois had become available, and I didn't know what I was going to do about that. So Joel came up with the solution, actually. Cancel the hold, get back on the wait list. There was only one person on the wait list for some reason, down from like 10. I think that's why I ended up getting it much earlier than I thought I would. So just get back on the hold list, and whenever that person is done with the book, it will come back to me. But that's what I did. However, apparently the other person did the exact same thing, because by Wednesday, I got another notification that the Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois is available for me to pick up at the library. And then I got another notification that The Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead is also available for me to pick up. And that's 2 books that are over 500 pages. And I really wanted to get to Piranesi in October. This is why I don't do TBRs. And I really want to get to this before I see the movie. But this doesn't come out until either late November or early December. I can't remember which. So there's a little bit of leeway. I do kind of want to read The Great Circle before the Booker is announced, just in case. So I haven't really decided. I wouldn't be able to pick any of them up until this weekend anyway. So I don't know what I'm going to do with those. This is why I don't do TBRs, because things come up and then things happen, and it's fine, but it means that I'm probably not going to get to Piranesi in October, which was like the one thing I said I wanted to do this month. So that's why I'm terrible at TBRs. So anyway, that about sums up my reading week and what I've been doing. I'm really looking forward to watching Bake Off tonight. I've been enjoying this season. I'd love to hear what you've been up to in your reading life, what you have going on, what you've been watching and loving and hating and all of that stuff. Let me know in the comment section down below. And I will leave it at that point. As always, I really appreciate your time, your comments, all of the feelings. I really appreciate the support about my grandmother and about Guinness, and just thank you. And I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.